This is the Samsung Galaxy S8, and more than just being the latest addition to one of the most acclaimed smartphone families of all time, this year's Galaxy takes some big departures from previous gen hardware, reinventing Samsung's flagship handset with a bold new design and some compelling new software and services. Maybe more than anything else, the Galaxy S8 is a phone defined by its screen, and what a screen it is. Like the recently launched LG G6, Samsung's embracing the idea of an extra widescreen aspect ratio, here outdoing even the G6 with its 5.7-inch 18.5 by 9 shaped display. That spells roughly 500,000 more pixels than you'll find on last year's Galaxy S7. If you haven't gotten the memo yet, bezels are seriously on the way out, and with the GS8, Samsung's doing all it can to minimize them. In addition to severely shrinking them down on the top and bottom, Samsung's taken a page from its own Note 7 playbook and made its curved, over-the-edge screen the default for the Galaxy S8 as well, resulting in a handset with an impressive 83% screen-to-body ratio. A screen this big necessitates some sacrifices, and the most obvious of those is the classic Samsung physical home button. Instead, Samsung goes the virtual on-screen Android button route, but not without making sure that faithful users won't miss the familiar home button click, as the company implements a very iPhone 7 feeling haptic feedback engine. The clicks are maybe a little less satisfying than Apple's, but we're going to want to spend some more time with the hardware before forming our final opinions. And as a consequence of no more home button on the phone's face, Samsung's forced to move its fingerprint scanner around back, now located next to the handset's camera. That's a camera we've pretty much seen before, with the hardware largely matching what Samsung used on the Galaxy S7. What we can look forward to, though, are image processing speed enhancements, which could result in low-light performance improvements. Around front, selfie cam resolution grows to 8 megapixels while picking up a much-appreciated autofocus face tracking mode. Another feature from the Note 7 is back for the GS8, with Samsung letting users authenticate themselves and unlock their phones with the help of an iris scanner. We haven't been able to run any benchmarks just yet in Samsung's new hardware, but our impressions from this hands-on time reveal a phone that's at the top of its game in terms of raw performance. That's helped out by the presence of new 10nm processor tech, and the rest of the hardware here is similarly impressive, like a base 64GB level of internal storage. Of course, microSD expansion makes its return if you need to push even higher. If you've been paying close attention to this hardware, you may have spotted an anomaly by now. Those of you counting buttons will notice the volume rocker, the power button, and now a new third button input. This lets you speak to Bixby, Samsung's new intelligent assistant. Functionality is along the lines of what you're familiar with from competing services like the Google Assistant, but Samsung's also emphasizing the extent to which Bixby can make predictions about functions to recommend based on your phone usage behavior patterns, as well as the ability to control nearly every aspect of the GS8 software via voice command. Sadly, Bixby is not fully functional on this demo unit, but we should be bringing you a separate Bixby introduction very soon. Other important hardware details worth pointing out include a body that measures 1.5mm thinner than the Galaxy S7, the return of a 3000 mAh battery, as well as niceties like waterproofing and support for wireless charging. Unsurprisingly, the hardware feels great, and its sleek design with that incredibly expansive screen just comes across as all sorts of futuristic. Phones like this almost shouldn't exist, but Samsung's efforts to push the envelope come together to give us one of the most visually and physically impressive handsets we've seen all year. We still have the expected questions about the extent to which these substantial changes may affect the Galaxy user experience, and chief among those being how easy the GS8 is going to be to use one-handed, but first impressions are very positive. The Galaxy S8 is a mix of old and new, familiar design elements juxtaposed against some bound-to-be controversial new ones. After last year's Note 7 debacle, we wouldn't have blamed Samsung if it wanted to play things safe with the Galaxy S8, but that's not at all the case here. The GS8 is challenging, inspiring,